All right. So back with Rich. How's it going, Rich?
It's going well, Amy. How are you today?
Good. So we were just chatting about some stuff and just some things that we want to touch on, in this interview. And it's really interesting because I've been going through a lot of this detox stuff, and I'm into some really like deeper level detox stuff now. And I love talking to Rich about like, okay, why am I feeling like this, or why do I have to worry about this, or whatever. And he's just a great source of information for stuff. And while I'm on it, if I'm saying a lot and I'm like missing words and stuff, is because my brain is like off somewhere else. Like it's like not running on all the cylinders at the moment. It hasn't been for like a month.
And you're way better than you were the other day, though.
I know. I was just gonna say, the other day we were chatting, and Rich is like, "This is the most off I've ever seen you."
It really was. So you're like 5 times brighter than that today, like energetically and everything. So your detox is clearly working.
Well, I hope so, because it's for those of you who don't know, I've been doing a heavy duty detox, and I'm in there are 3 phases, and each phase is a month, and the third phase, a lot of people have to repeat for months or for years even. It's crazy. But I started doing that 2.5 months. I'm a week into the last phase now. So I've got hopefully just 3 weeks to go. But you're setting up this gradient in your body, this chemical gradient for toxins to come out of your cells in all of your tissues and be led out of the body. And so it's actually pretty different than what most people think of when they think of a detox or a cleanse. I'll talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh yeah, I did one of those," and they get, you can get the little box or the pills, at the drugstore or something like that, and say, "There you go." Then you warmed off wine.
Pills, yeah.
Right.
I'll promote my supplement line later. But.
Right. There we go. So you could probably do a better job than a lot of what's on the market these days.
Probably good.
I'd have no doubt.
That bar's pretty low out there.
It's pretty low. And that's something that's really important, actually, because if you're looking to really do something meaningful with your body to get toxins out, you really have to know what you're doing and what you're taking. And so we mentioned this in the other videos that we did, but if you're going to be doing some kind of detox program, if you're doing some little thing, from the drugstore shelf or whatever, then it's, or some direct sales company or something that does it. That's going to be something that, it's not going to hurt anybody, most likely. It's going to be something very mild. It may clean out some elimination pathways, maybe focus on your liver, your kidneys, something like that, but it's not going to be a deep cellular detox program. There are several of those around, and there are more around now than there were actually a couple months ago when I started this one. Like now, some other people I follow, some doctors and whatnot, are coming up with their own programs. And it's really interesting to see like what they're using. They all have different supplements involved and stuff. I was telling Rich that right now I'm taking pills 7 times a day. Okay. So if you think your little detox thing, was doing something where you take a couple pills, every few hours or something, and you're eating a lot of vegetables and you're drinking celery juice. No, this is like a totally different thing. This is like big deal. And when you do these big deal ones, you can feel really, really bad. Like you're not just going to be, all, sunshine and roses as you go through and, oh, I'm feeling so clean and fresh and everything. No, it doesn't work that way. It gets a lot worse before it gets better. So,
as you said a minute ago, like some of the detox pills and the supplements people buy from direct marketing or wherever, they're designed to be sort of lightweight so they don't hurt anybody. But by the same token, if they're not going to hurt you, they're probably not going to help you a lot either. And if you do a big detox, like you were just saying, like there's some side effects that come with that, and they don't want that. So, absolutely, if you're doing,
I hadn't thought of that.
You know what you're doing because there's
that's a good point. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, I mean, if somebody's buying, if you're a direct sales rep for something or whatever, and you're selling a detox, and people are using it and they're feeling really bad, and you are not qualified to coach them through that, most likely. Now, if you work for a supplement company, that may be a different story. There are people at supplement companies that make detox programs, and they do have coaches that are actually certified in that sort of detox program so that they can coach people through it. And that's a big difference. I think maybe that's one thing to look for in a detox program, not just a Facebook support group, but actually like a coach that you can go to anytime with questions about, like one of the symptoms I have is I have a leg injury, and it was getting really bad. I've been hobbling around like an old lady. It's crazy. Today is better. But I'm on an off day now. So I'm taking nutritional supplements that are part of this program, but I'm not taking the heavy chelators that are part of it. I stopped, my on week stopped yesterday, and now I'm on an off week, and then I go on and then off. And so a big difference in how I feel yesterday versus today. And so, you're really cleaning some nasty stuff, out of your body, and there's no way the binders that you're taking can get all of that, all the time. And so it's really important when you do get symptoms, detox symptoms, that you have somebody who can tell you first, are they actually detox symptoms? Because there's something else going on. You need to get checked out, right? Like you need a different source or information. Yeah. And then also, what you should do. So like I went on my support forum where there's a coach that's there every day answering questions. And there was somebody else who was having joint pain and insomnia. And those are the two big things that I've been dealing with. And she said exactly the opposite of what I would have thought, but she knows a lot more about this than I do. And so I was really glad that I had that, because I probably would have tried something else and it would have been the wrong thing. And so, you have to kind of, get over the idea that you know more than you do, or that you can figure it out. Oh, anybody can figure this out, right? Not always. Like it's not always intuitive. So I did what she recommended the other person do, and I noticed a difference. Like it was yesterday, the second half of yesterday, I added something to it, and I felt a lot better the second half of the day. So it was, you definitely, if you're going to do a big time detox, you need to make sure that there's some kind of a coach that really understands what that detox program is doing, that specific one that can help you along the way. So I really want to put that out there and just burn it into people's heads right now as I'm going through the roughest section of this detox program. And I'm having a much easier time than a lot of people do. Not as easy as some, but I consider myself pretty lucky. And I think it's because of what I did to get here. And we talked about this. We're going to talk about these things too. I've been on a ketogenic diet, mostly carnivore on and off, but definitely animal heavy keto for the last 2.5 years. And it just starting yesterday again, I went straight just meat and water again. Like that's how I feel the best. And with this program, they tell you they have you move into a ketogenic sort of way of eating, and they encourage intermittent fasting, and we're going to talk about some of that too. So so there are several things on our agenda today that we want to get to. But first, like if you can just talk to us about like what are the differences in the different detox programs that we keep talking about deeper. I keep talking about deeper detox programs, or these little ones, the oh, it's so cute kind of ones, right?
So cute. Taking your pills.
Right. So can you go into some of that? Because you've done this with so many people over so many years, and you're the man. So can you enlighten us on this stuff?
Absolutely. I think you said something that was a minute ago. You said several things that are worth coming back to at some point in this conversation. But one was never assume that you know more than you know. And that's a approach I take too. And I've been doing these things for years and guiding other people through them for years. And things just come up. There's new products all the time. I get questions all the time, like with and our little thing was, so we get questions all the time. And so the different levels of detox, and the one is like somebody buys some pills, right? And they're like, I'm taking this detox pill. That, and there's nothing wrong with those to do a lighter detox, depending on the ingredients and the quality and the reputation of the company. But the different phases are, we want to do a lighter detox on an ongoing basis. That's where I come in. But,
could you repeat that? We had that we had that audio thing going on with you again for some reason.
For some reason, my computer does not like talking to your computer.
I know.
It's a yellow connection. So I apologize if I cut out. I'll repeat anything I need to. But So there's a lot of things out there that are kind of lighter detox. And we were talking about some of the pills someone might be taking. And I've had clients come to me over the years, I'm taking this, what do you think of it? And it's usually lighter stuff. Like you said, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to help you a lot either. Your liver, as Amy, as you said a few minutes ago when we were talking, is your liver might feel happier for the next 24 hours, or it might help flood those elimination pathways in a basic way, very simply. But a lighter detox is basically, that's what we're talking about, really, is keeping the elimination pathways open, keeping the basic toxins that are flowing around in your body. I generally use the language like on the surface level, like the things that are easy for to access, the things, your bloodstream and things like that are going through your liver and your kidneys. That's sort of the basic elimination pathways clearing. And then we get into some deeper detoxes. And that's where we start usually having to use some specific herbs or supplements, or so you have for detoxing.
It's some herbs.
Yeah, so we started doing a deeper detox, back to that mid-level detox. That's where we started we want to use some specific herbs. And for those, it depends on what you're trying to use. Do you have medical conditions? And do you have male or female, things like that? How old are you? There's some things that we could come up with a special formulation for. But there's also some well-known herbs that are just basic to any detox, and things like glutathione and things like that are known to be detoxing type supplements. That gets us into that mid-grade detox where we're starting to get into the cellular level. We're starting to get into the deeper tissues, get the body to release some of the stores that are in fat in other areas. And then we get into the deeper detox, which generally that means we're getting brain, really deep organ tissues and things like that. And that's where, these things can, when I have an impact, there's a side effect. And you get all these toxins running around in your system. Your body grabs them and basically puts them in jail for a reason and stores them. And start letting out like prison break at first. Then we get these guards, right? The binders running around trying to tackle these things and escort them out the door. The bouncers, as I think I called them the other day, like, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. Let's move on out. And they escort them to the door. That's what the binders do. So there's those three levels, and the deeper you go, there's a lot of benefit, but there's also more impact. And like we were saying, a few days ago, and you were like, man, I don't feel well. Yeah, I can see it, because you're that's also why they're having you cycle.
But can you repeat that part?
Yeah. So that's where we get into those deeper phases of the detox. And the deeper we go, that's great, because we're getting into deep tissues and we're releasing a lot of toxins. That's also where the impact can be greater. And it's good to have that guidance. Like, you're in that deeper phase of the detox. And that's where you're I don't like me. And I'm like, no, Jack Sparrow. This is so because you're doing the deep brain detox, you're letting a lot of things out. And I'm sure that's also why they're having you cycle week to week the different things. You can't stay in that too long without harming necessarily, but you want to be wonky for weeks while you're doing this deep detox. And your body needs time to recover. So
yeah, and it's I can definitely see why, like, even though my stuff isn't as bad as some others, like some people are having like a horrible time. They're just sick as dogs, through this, and then others are like, no, I didn't have any symptoms at all. No, isn't that nice?
Yeah, right.
Isn't that nice?
We hate those people. The rest of you are in a private chat room talking about how much.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, it's you could definitely tell, when I'm on the heavy chelators that some are going into the cells. Actually, they're tiny. They go into the cells and they grab stuff and they bring them out. Some of them are working around the cells, and others are in the GI tract. They're different sizes. They're latching onto different stuff, and I can totally tell when I've got those things going on, because stuff is coming out, like you can feel it, like things are not quite right. Maybe your energy's off, your memory's off, your whatever, thinking kind of slowly, you can tell psychological and physical symptoms from, you're getting all all those toxins out, and then, where are they going? So like you said, they're in jail for a reason. They don't get to play with everybody else because they're not playing nice. And they don't play nice, and you can really feel it, because you know, those binders, those chelation agents, are not able to get everything. And so some of that is, you know, impacting you. And it's really interesting to just see, you know, I had no idea how I was going to respond to this at all, but it seems to me like it's whatever your weak systems are, just in general, that you've noticed over the years, those are the ones that are going to be a real problem when you're detoxing.
Absolutely.
And so I'm hoping that it's going to help those things get better. Like I'll be sleeping better. One of the indicators I'm looking to see at the end of this is that I sleep well, because I haven't been sleeping well for a while. It's been hormonally driven and everything, but there, you know, if that shouldn't be happening anyway, you know, regardless of what's going on, how much progesterone I have, it shouldn't be happening anyway. And so it's a big hope that I have that I'll be able to sleep really well after this. And then a few other things as well, you know, get off my thyroid medication and stuff, and a number of things I'm looking to do at the end of this. Right now, the things that, you know, that I noticed, my joint issues, I have mild arthritis in both hips, and my joints are all like, the one person in the forum that I was looking at was saying her joints were aching like she had done a hard workout, but she hadn't been doing anything, but they just have felt like that. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that's it. Like I have that. And then I'm waking up every hour on the hour all night long. You know, the whole last week I've been waking up. And then last night I actually slept a bit better. I woke up early, but I did get a nice block of sleep in. So I think I mean, is that typical? Like whatever your weak systems are, that's what you're going to be seeing the biggest impact in terms of both detox symptoms and hopefully also improvement?
Absolutely. It's 100% across the board. Wherever you have a weakness, it's going to show up. And I was telling you one time where I tore my hamstring. It was a grade 3 tear, which means the muscle completely separated, and some years ago. And that's one place that anything starts going on in my body, even if I get sick, like the flu or there's a lot of scar tissue muscle repair now. And that's one of the first places that flares up. And the connective tissue in joints is in many ways similar to scar tissue, and that's why joints tend to get very, like the connective tissue in there, and that's why we tend to feel so much pain in our joints when we're doing a detox. But I've had the range of symptoms when I've done detoxes from, you know, over here on this side of the bell curve, completely sick, like feeling like flu, like that. And
you know what? I didn't get any of that. Let's hang on a second. I'm going to pause just so that we can hear everything. Okay, we're unpaused now. Okay, we had this computer switch up there, so hopefully the audio is a little bit better. Sorry, my computer's being so difficult playing with yours, but you know, technology is great that we can do this. You know, like it's amazing we can have these, you know, discussions like this and then make available to everybody. But at the same time, we have to there's no free lunch, right? So we got some technological glitches every so often.
You know, just in life, you know, it's like anything else. Sometimes you have an equipment change, like anything else. So.
There you go.
Riding, you got to change your flat. So.
Yeah. So yeah, you were talking about how your hamstring injury still to this day, when a cold's coming up or something, is your immune system is taxed or something like that you feel it.
Yeah, absolutely, including with detox, and it's because that scar tissue is very sensitive to inflammation, and that's also like the connective tissues in our joints, and that's why people with, you know, like you said, autoimmune systems, or when you're doing the detox, sometimes your joints will hurt because it's very susceptible to inflammation. That's one of the main signs of when you're doing the detox, is you have a lot of toxins in your system, or if you're not doing the detox and you've got a lot of toxins in your system, with that joint pain. And my right knee as well, that had a lot of injury. So my right hamstring, my right knee, when they start hurting, it's either there's a cold snap coming in, or I've got a lot of toxins, or I'm getting.
You sound like an old man. Oh, I got a storm coming in. My knees are.
There's a monsoon coming. I can tell my knees doing that. I've also, like, in my detox career personally, doing detoxes, I've had the full bell curve of experiences. From on one side, there's times I've been incredibly ill. It's just like I had flu or food poisoning and such. And it hasn't been very often that I've had it. And then I've had the other side where I just suddenly started feeling better. I was one of those people. And that was fantastic. But most of the time, in the middle of the bell curve there are some symptoms. And it's usually the brain fog. It's usually the fatigue. Maybe a little bit of nausea if I've built up a lot of toxins since my last detox, things like that. But I usually feel it in the energy level, both mental and physical.
Mm-hmm. So you know that you're really doing something to your body when it gets worse before it gets better. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have to remember that that means there's a lot of things stored in there, and we're releasing. That's where we're moving those out, and that's, if you're going to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. So it can be rough for a few days.
Yeah, it can be. It can. And like I say, I've had an easier time than a lot of people, but yeah, it's difficult. And one of the doctors that as part of this program was doing a video and saying that, one thing that kept her going was just that, I'm going to get to the end of this and I'm not going to have these toxins in my body anymore. So just stay with it. Cause she had a really rough time and she had to just keep egging herself on, telling herself
Right.
that it was going to get better. So, yeah.
It's like anything else we're trying to accomplish. If we get in that state, it's so important to focus on the benefits. And when I ever have a client, or for myself, when I start anything that's going to be challenging, one of the first things I do is sit down and write out that list of benefits that I want to achieve.
Nice.
We have to be able to, excuse me, go back to that, because there's times when we're not going to want to continue with it. I've had clients when they want to quit caffeine, because that can be kind of rough on the body too. I say, what are the benefits? Something simple like that. But even a detox, people, if that word's tossed around so much, that's why I have them do. If they're going to do a real detox, you have to decide what you want out of it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Because that way, when you feel terrible, you can be like, oh, that's right, I want this.
Yeah. So what are some things that go on with the deeper detoxes than the little nice little ones, like what's really happening? The way that they were describing this one that I'm on is that you're setting up a concentration gradient for heavy metals and biotoxins and whatnot to start moving from inside the cell to outside the cell and into the bloodstream. And so is that, I mean, when we talk about deeper tissues, like I never really understood what that meant. You were helping me with this the other day. So could you kind of describe what's going on with that?
Absolutely, as best I can. And I like that term gradient for this. And it's, to me, because that gives my gradient of going downhill, right? That things run downhill. So I like that idea, because what we're doing is we want everything flowing out. Like water runs downhill and runs into the creek or whatever, then flows away. We want these things, and that's not what it means in a chemistry term, of course, the chemistry aspect, but I like that's a good visual for that. And the deeper tissues, obviously, we have to get into the cellular level, because there are a lot of toxins that store in the cells themselves. And again, there's the lighter detoxes, the pills and such that people usually buy. Those are fantastic. We want those elimination pathways clear, but to get really deep in the cell, to really get into those, we say deeper tissues, it's actually getting into the cell, getting deep into the organs, getting into the fatty tissues, because our body stores so many things in fatty tissues. And that's where a lot of times I've even had people that started losing, my training clients who started losing weight really quickly, who got sick from it. And it was, as I could always see it, as it was a kind of a detox. Their body was burning fat, it was releasing toxins into their system.
And talking about burning fat, like that's this might be a good place to start talking about what else needs to happen besides just setting up that concentration gradient, which involves diet, right? When you're eating and what you're eating, and one of the big things in this program is getting people into fat burning mode, because you want to be losing that extra fat that was put on just for the purpose of holding on to these toxins so that they don't go into the organs and stuff. So you want to get rid of that, because that's not healthy to be packing on extra body fat, especially with the toxins. So you release the toxins, then your body can release the fat, but only if you're actually in fat burning mode, right? Because you're not going to be burning fat if your insulin is high. And so if you're eating a lot of sugar, and by sugar, I mean any carbohydrate whatsoever, because as soon as it gets into the mouth, it becomes sugar. Any of that, you're eating, right, like rice with a meal and bread with a meal and potatoes with a meal or whatever, and you've got this significant amount of carbohydrate, and then having a couple snacks in between, and it's low fat, but it's got all the sugar in it or whatever. Just getting off the sugar is one thing, but getting off of all the carbohydrate, that is where the magic really happens, because that's when your insulin really goes down, and insulin locks fat in the fat cells, so it can't be used. So when it's up, you can't burn fat, but when it's down, it can come out. So in order to be able to really wash everything out of your system that you want to get rid of with a process like this, including the fat that's been storing those toxins, you have to be in fat burning mode. So you have to be in a ketogenic state at least part of the day to be able to let that go. And if you're not, then not only are you not getting rid of that, but you're adding more to it, especially if you're overeating, right? You're going to Jack in the Box every day or something, you're putting more into those cells, right?
Right.
So that's a really important part. And then the other part that I wanted to just touch on too, if you could touch on this too, is that if you're eating a lot of foods that have natural toxins in them, and all plants have natural toxins in them, and some people are more sensitive to some than others, and you have to be a single subject experiment. We were talking about this earlier, and you just have to know what foods do best for you. But if you're trying to get toxins out of your body, why would you be putting more in, right? And so like for me, I happen to know that I don't do well with any plants at all. I do better with no plants at all, meat and water. That's it. Like I eat 5 things now. Like that's about it. But I do bet, I wish I could say otherwise, but that's the way it is. And maybe it's because of metabolic damage. Maybe it's because of who knows what, but that's the way it is. And so when you clean out your body, you can listen to what it's telling you better. And when you can actually hear what it's saying, you might not like what it's saying, but at least you're hearing it and and you have to really focus on that. So can you address some of that stuff too, like we were talking about earlier? I think it's really important for people to know this. You can't just keep your same diet or go on some juice cleanse or something and then, go back to what you were doing and then, consider yourself cleaned out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much goodness in what you just said there. I mean, one of it, we're talking about not putting toxins back in our body, which goes back to our first recording on this topic, which is it's a very toxic world. And the first thing we want to do is reduce the amount of toxins coming into our body. And part of that is through food. So again, why would we put more in? And then the other aspect is I like to use the term cell in a couple different ways there, because we're talking about the cells on our side of our body that make up our body and toxins being in there. We talk about fat cells storing toxins. I like to use that prison break, that the things where our body's imprisoning the toxins. The more fat we have, the more toxins we can store. And a lot of times when people are having weight loss issues, it's one of the things, I won't say it happens regularly, but it's not uncommon either for me to have a client, they're doing the right things. And I believe them that they're doing the right things and they're not lying to me about what they're eating and what they're doing for exercise. Because most people are, of course, going to be honest. When they get stuck, one of the things I'll have them do is a detox. And like we also talked about in the first episode, that detoxes for weight loss got a really bad reputation with some of the TV doctors promoting them and things like that. They were clearly in with the companies they were promoting and such. But when our body's storing a lot of toxins, when we're very toxic, and a lot of that is, most of those are stored in the body's fat cells, it doesn't want to give those up. And that leads back to what I was saying with people who sometimes they get on the right thing and they just change their diet, start exercising in a way that's good for them. They start losing weight and they kind of start feeling sick because they are doing a detox in a sense. Not really, we're releasing toxins into their system, but it's a very crude form of detox and they don't realize it. They start feeling very poorly. So it's very important, as you said, start bringing that body fat down because it's one of the many benefits. So our bodies, is whatever one's personal beliefs are. Our bodies have been around for a long time on this planet. And going up until just very recently was obesity a problem. And now it's a ridiculous problem because literally, even going back to a very short time, within 100 years or so, food was not in abundance for most people. And so this part of our brain is like food, eat. So now we have this obesity issue, but before it wasn't a problem. And extra body fat, and this is no judgment on anybody's lifestyle or anything else, but there's nothing healthy about extra body fat, excessive body fat. And in terms of our conversation today, absolutely, you're just storing more toxins. So the lower we get our body fat and all the health benefits that go with that, we're also leaving less room for toxins, all these to just be stored in the body. And that's a good thing, obviously. So we want that to happen. And then we want to be on a regular detox program because it is a toxic world. Again, these things are coming in. And we want those things just moving continually out of our body. That's how our body's designed to work. And it's back to reference that we talked about in the first recording on this, is that, again, our bodies are very old, or the design of our bodies is very old. And it wasn't designed for a world that is this toxic, which is where detox programs become so important. because back in our, even if we go back to recorded history, thousands of years ago, which is pretty hard to debate, that even then the world, there were not a billion cars on the planet. There was no mercury in the fish supply and things like that. There was all these, people weren't putting on deodorants and stuff with aluminum in them and all these other toxins. So back then, our detoxification was simple. You just eat food and drank water, and that was pretty effective. And you sweated during the day because whether you were a hunter or a farmer or a gatherer, you were moving all day and you were sweating probably very often. So our body, the natural basic detox system is there, but now because we made the world more toxic, we have to focus more on detoxing.
Yeah, and just the food, like, when did we start getting processed food? What that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
the stuff that we're bringing into our bodies is really, really toxic. And when you take a look at all the things that you've been doing over your lifetime, it was interesting because when I took some measurements, and I don't know just how accurate these measures are. I've read different things about them, but one of them is a measure of inflammation, and that went down from 7 at the beginning. 7, it's a 1 to 7 scale. Went from a 7 to about a 4, and then it stayed at about a 4. And that's a measure of inflammation from cell membranes degrading, being broken down, and other acetyl sort of chemicals. That whole group of chemicals apparently gets picked up by this test. But then there's also a questionnaire, a neurotoxic questionnaire. And I started at 69, and after the prep phase, which is basically elimination system pathway clearing, which is what most of the little cleanses and detoxes are, it went down to a 65. So 69 to a 65. And then after the first kind of serious, I guess, body phase, they call it, detox phase, it went down to a 47. So that tells you something about, and again, I mean, I don't know about the reliability of the measures or anything, but it's showing that I still have a lot of inflammation throughout this process, which makes sense. If I'm releasing, more toxins into my bloodstream, that's going to be increasing inflammation. And then also that my symptoms keep going down. And they went down just a tiny, tiny bit, with the elimination pathway cleanse. But then as we started getting that gradient set up, and toxins start coming out of the tissues, it went down from a 65 to a 47. That's a huge difference. So if you just stop at the elimination pathway stuff with, a couple of pills in a box, and some powders and whatnot, you're really missing out on where the magic happens. You have to do that first, but then, the magic really happens with this other stuff. So I'm interested to see what my measures are going to be in 3 more weeks when I finish this particular phase. It started out kind of rough, but I'm hoping that, I'm feeling better today. So I'm hoping that I'm actually in good shape at the end of it. That would be pretty cool. But, one of the things that has to happen is you have to be in that fat burning mode. And there are a couple of different ways of getting there. One of them is, cleaning up your diet so that you're not eating. The amount of carbs that we eat in our society right now is a toxic level of carbohydrate. I will go on record as saying it is a toxic level. It is actually a toxic level. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. It's an obscene amount of carbs that we eat in our society, and especially considering the vast majority of those are processed carbs.
Oh,
and
yeah, makes it even worse.
The chemicals in our diet a few minutes ago and such, that we have to factor that into this nutrition conversation as well. And to everybody who's participating and looking into this later, if you really want to freak yourself out, go Google, spend some time researching things like the preservatives that are commonly in food, the additives, the colors. We all know there's so many study after study that these things are cancer causing, but and all these other conditions they lead to. And even things that stay preservative free, a lot of times they do the sneaky little thing where they spray the preservative on the inside of the packaging. That way they're thinking the food is preservative free. Absolutely. Right. They can claim that. So these things are so prolific in our diet. It's absolutely disgusting. But yeah, we have to definitely clean up our diet first.
Yeah. And if we, and carbohydrate is the one thing we never have to eat. But bro science has been telling us forever that we, like when you get to the gym and whatnot, that you have to have some carbs. You have to, now it's true if you're doing a really heavy duty workout, getting some extra carbohydrate is going to really fuel that workout. No doubt about that. I've noticed that, firsthand many times. However, if you read Mark Sisson and, his group, Brad Kearns, those guys who were professional endurance athletes and now train professional endurance athletes, they do it totally differently. And they stay carb free basically throughout training. And they're burning body fat. And, you don't need to carry the little, package of, gel or whatever, right, to power gel, to get you through the race. And it was interesting because I remember Mark Sisson talking about one time, he was saying that when he was running marathons, and this dude's been on the cover of Runner's World twice, like, this is a serious athlete. And he said that, all those guys train the same way. They all did their carb loading before they had a big race. But there was one guy from somewhere in Europe. I don't remember where he said he was from, like some Slavic country or something. And all he had was a little container of walnut oil. That's all he had. And they thought he was crazy. They just kept waiting for him to keel over and like pass out or die one day on the race, because he's like, there's no way. And as it turns out, he had been on a ketogenic diet. In other words, he was eating very low amounts of carbohydrate and he was fueling his body with body fat. And so even somebody in great shape like that has got, a good 50,000 calories worth of fuel on board in terms of stored fat that they can use. And then of course there's a reserve you can't use because you have to keep that. But even somebody like that has that much. Now, how much do I have on me? I've got a lot more than that on me. Like I have tons of fuel on board me, right? Like I have no reason to ever be eating a carb again, And so but all he would do is every once in a while throughout the race, long period, longer than going, between gels, he would go and then he would just take the walnut oil out and he'd have a little sip of the walnut oil and put it back in his pack and he's done, and they thought that was crazy. But that always, stayed with Sisson. And then he wound up, of course, being now a guru for the whole Primal Blueprint program and a keto advocate. And he and Brad Kearns, they work together and they train endurance athletes to run on fat for fuel because it's lighter. Like they don't need to be refueling. They don't bonk. Your body doesn't bonk during exercise if you're using fat for fuel. So there are actually a lot of advantages. And in fact, so many, I can't even begin to get into them, even stuff you wouldn't expect, things like, poop and stuff, like things that like you would never think about have advantages to human survival throughout the 2.5 million years we've been on this planet that I, for one, never thought about until fairly recently, until I really got into researching this, and living all of this. And it's absolutely fascinating. But the bottom line is, no matter what anybody else tells you, nobody ever has to eat a gram of carbohydrate in their entire life. Your body makes all the carbs you need, which is why there are no essential sugars. There are no essential starches. Like there are essential fatty acids that make up fats and essential amino acids that make up proteins. Essential meaning you can't make them yourself. You have to get them from your diet. You don't need any of that. So one of the things that this detox program does, coming into it, they start setting up kind of a gradient in your eating, like where you're eating fewer and fewer carbs and you're sticking more to just vegetables and none of the other stuff. And as you get to the point where you have to go lower and lower for your particular body, we're all different. But for me, I have to go very low on the carb scale. I eat less than 5 grams of total carbs a day. That's typical for me. That's as close to zero as anybody can get, basically. And so a couple steaks and I'm good. A couple eggs. That's it. So but you don't always have to be like that, but you have to know where your body is able to start burning that fuel that's on board. Otherwise you're not going to release all that stuff, and get rid of everything you want to get rid of during a detox. And the other way of doing it besides diet, that has to get in line, but then also the timing. You were talking earlier before this about intermittent fasting or IF. And fasting is a great way to get your body into fat burning mode. You just have to watch out because when you are in eating mode again, if you fast, 18 hours and you eat for 6 hours, whatever it is, that's my typical one. there, during the 18 hours, you can use fat for fuel, unless you're eating a bunch of carbs during your feeding window of 6 hours, in which case now you have to go through those first. So for the first 12 of the 18 hours that you're fasting, you're still burning sugar. You're not allowing any of that fat out of the cells, but you have a few hours where you are. Now, maybe that's sufficient for you. Maybe it's not. But you have to know what works for you. So just to know that those two things, you have to get your body in that mode where it's cleaning all that stuff out, and what you eat and when you eat play a huge role in that. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Any good advice for anybody on that?
Yeah, I think yes.
What's that?
I said yes. I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. And that takes us, really leads naturally into the concept we were talking about before we hit record, which is the idea of being the scientist in your own life. And really just looking at this as a process, and start with the principles. There's a lot of principles out there that we know work, and there's research behind it, such. And start there and just experiment. It's not progress, not perfection. And things like you were saying at one point earlier, that there's 5 foods you can eat. And I've been over that for years. There's about 5.
Oh, we lost you there for a second.
I can actually eat because I paid attention to the cover.
Can-
So, get me back now?
Yeah, could you go over that again? We lost you there again.
Yeah,
I think it's more the internet connection than the computer, but we'll see.
So we've got this idea of being the scientist in your own life and just learning all some basic principles, and there's things that are known, and then build from there. Progress, not perfection. It's not like you're going to be detoxed and perfect in 90 days. But you start with basic principles, and you were talking about earlier how there was like 5 foods you can eat. And I've been saying for years that I've got about 5 or 10 foods I can eat. And those include, based on of my body, I've experimented over the years. I've done elimination diets. And my 5 or 10 foods are like meat, tree bark, sand, like it's just like water.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's pretty limited. But that's where I feel the best. Do I eat that way all the time? No. I live in the first world, but I really try to build my diet around that concept. But really, the IF, because it goes back to keto and IF, that their bodies evolve eating and such. But IF's a really big part of this because it helps reduce body fat. But also, your body can either be burning fuel or detoxing, right? And we've talked about alcohol before. Your body can be removing alcohol from your system or burning fat, not both at the same time. You make your choice. And the same with burning fat. So you get all the food out of your system, and your body gets even this short-term fast state where you get to that 12-hour window after you eat. And
We lost you again.
Whatever your window is.
Rich, we lost you again.
14-hour fast. I get a couple hours in there.
Rich,
wow.
We lost you again. That was a long one, actually.
Okay. I'm going to roll really with all the answers that anybody needs.
Oh, missed all of that. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. That's unfortunate because it's all the answers everybody needs, and I'm not going to say.
Right. So I'm wondering if
but really, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's better. I think you're back now. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, basically just saying how give our body time between digesting food and that time to detox. And you start getting into different IF windows, and that could be a whole other segment in itself. Yeah. But give our body time to do what it needs to do, which is detox, because it can be processed food or detoxing, not both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same is true if you catch a bug or something. If you get sick, like if your body's fighting that off, it can't fight off other stuff. It can't do other jobs. And so a lot of people actually are worried about getting sick during detoxing, and that's a valid concern because I don't know if this was the best time for me to be doing a detox. I started right as all of this craziness started going on, but But I wasn't too worried about myself. I know just being in a ketogenic state keeps you from being a good host for a virus. So there was a doctor in Australia who I was listening to a couple months ago saying that even though he loves eating breakfast, he decided to skip breakfast. He was doing intermittent fasting from dinner until dinner every day that he was seeing patients, because he wanted to make sure he was in a ketogenic state while he was seeing those patients, just in case they came in with either COVID or any other infectious disease. He wanted to make sure that he was the worst possible host and would not get it. And I thought that was really interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, but just the act of like skipping breakfast and lunch on the days that he was seeing patients, so that he was fasting that entire time, doing, roughly 24-hour fast each day. That's a lot of time for your body to get into that ketogenic state and stay there, and be able to, let your body not worry so much about digestion, but rather do those other jobs and fight off, any invaders that are there. So yeah, keep in mind, if you're snacking all throughout the day, then your body can't do anything else but process food, very well. It's you're taking up resources, precious resources from that. Yeah.
Our bodies are very one-dimensional. It likes to do one thing at a time, right? And so so make sure you're being intentional about what you're having your body do. And it does have to process. That's an important part of the day, but not as much as we have become accustomed to in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I love that. Be conscious of what your body is doing. That you can decide what it's doing just by your behavior. And if you're giving yourself food, then you're deciding that you're going to spend your resources on digesting that food. And if you're not, you're going to be just fine. The longest fast that's been done, doctor supervised water fast, was 382 days, so over a year. Just water and B vitamins. That's all he had. I forget the guy's name. Anyway, he's kind of a celebrity in the fasting community. He's the man. But it started out as just 30 days. His doctor, he was morbidly obese and had a lot of health problems. He was like gonna keel over any day, and his doctor was really worried about him. And as like a Hail Mary, he asked the guy, would you be willing to try just not eating for like 30 days and just see how you do? And he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever. And he did. And he got to the end of the 30 days and he said, hey doc, can I keep going? Because I feel really good. He said, sure. And he kept going. And so with nothing but water and B vitamins, this dude had enough body fat on him to survive over a year just eating his own tissue. He's eating his own fat. He's eating his own, and he never had any flappy skin or anything, because he was eating his own, protein, eating the flappy skin, eating the unused tissue or diseased tissue. It's called autophagy. And that's what happens whenever you're in a ketogenic state. You tend to do that, which is why when you lose body fat and change your body composition with fasting and ketogenic eating, you don't ever have that flappy skin problem. Now if you go really, really fast, you might have it for a while, and it takes your body a while to catch up and eat all of that excess tissue, but it will do that. But if you see people that lose weight really fast on sugar-based programs, they have all this flappy skin. But if they lose weight on ketogenic programs, they don't have that skin, because your body eats all of that and recycles the proteins and the fats into shiny, bright new cells and body tissues, right? So there's a big difference in what your body's, once you understand the mechanics of how your body's working, then you can help direct what's going on with it just by what you do and what you eat.
Right. And when I'm doing IF, which is most of the time, I'm doing some variation, even if it's a 14-hour window, and I can get deeper into that. And again, deep scientists find what works for you. And there's certain days I can go longer, certain days less. I try to keep it consistent, of course. But it's one of the things that, back to that original list, what am I trying to accomplish with this? And if I'm in a detox phase, I'm going to take longer windows for my fasting period. And back to, again, you start thinking with strategery, right? Think strategically with what you're trying to do with your body. And the principles are pretty simple. You just have to decide, am I detoxing now? What am I doing something else? And figure out what puts you into that state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, once you really clean everything up, like with a lot of my clients, they all say like they're amazed that they didn't feel bad eating certain things before, but they do now. And
Mhm.
it's not that they didn't feel bad before, it's that they notice it now. Like they, because your body is all, it's responding the same way to everything. But now if you're not eating all of the crap all day long, but now you just have, a piece of crap once in a while, and your body is like, no way, no, we're not going back to that. We're not doing that. And now you can hear it. And so that's one of the beautiful things about this sort of thing, and it helps with the whole detoxing much better, I think. I think that one of the reasons that I'm having a much better time than a lot of people, because I know I've got a lot of toxicity in me, like just what I've gone through in my 53 years, like spending 5 years working 100 hours a week in a lab with a bunch of carcinogens, a wet lab, with no windows, no fume hood, no nothing. We had a fume hood, but it wasn't hooked up to anything. It was just ornamental. That was my graduate program. 5 years of that, bunch of carcinogens, bunch of other toxins. And that's just 5 years, then all the hair coloring and the nail polish and, the products that I'm using on my skin and in my house and everything that, I didn't realize were bad for me until I did. And then I switched them up, but still a lot of years of that. Just think about this stuff, all the junk food that I've eaten over the years and, the treats I'm giving myself and stuff. Like, you add all of that stuff up and, I've got a pretty normal existence. Like, I'm not working at some crazy place, the 5 years in that wet lab. Yeah, that was kind of excessive. And so, when I think, but then also during those 5 years, I lived on, cherry Cokes and coffee and chocolate zingers from the vending machine in the psych auditorium. Like that's what I lived on. I lived on nothing but toxins, for 5 years. And so I figured that even though, I had some amalgam fillings and stuff like that, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll be high in heavy metals. I was in the middle of the high range when I started this, but now I'm in the normal range. Even before starting this, deepest level of detoxing, my heavy metals went down into the normal range. But at the beginning, the biotoxins were off the chart. I mean, at the highest possible they could be. And I had no idea. But as I started reflecting on my life, and I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that could have built up over that time, right?
Yeah.
Hadn't even thought of it before. And now at the beginning of this phase, I'm right in the middle of the high category for the biotoxins. So it's gone down significantly. I'm still in the high range, but I'm in the middle of it instead of being off the charts. So that's gone down a lot. So hopefully over this next month that goes down, I'm back in the normal range, and then I can stop doing this and start doing, more of a regular kind of, I want to get kind of a normal daily detox, and I'm going to have you help me with this together. I've got some ideas, but I want to run them by you, because don't do this on your own. And don't think you're smarter than you are. So
never think you're smarter than you are. It's a simple principle of life. Never think you know everything. Never think you're smarter than you are.
those are words to live by, for sure.
So I fully agree with that. Yeah, and we should always be looking in terms of being in some sort of detoxing program. And once we get used to it, once we set up on it, it's really easy to maintain. And I think initially, like months ago when you first started it, that's how we started this recording series, right? Is we were just texting, like, oh, I started a detox. I'm like, me too. Tell me about yours. And you were doing a formal program, and I was just using my school of hard knocks detox required knowledge, and they were very similar. And I was sharing with you at that time that I am always in some sort of like at least detox phase, keeping the elimination pathways clear, keep things moving out. And then every other month I alternate at least a moderate cleanse in, and some charcoal and active charcoal and things like that. And then once or twice a year, I'll go deeper. I'll set aside a month, 6 weeks, whatever, and focus on a deeper cleanse. But even then, I'm just always generally have, my detox teas that I make, or whatever I'm taking. Like today, I'm going to detox because I missed my workout window this morning. And it's, right now it's too hot, but later today it's going to be 157 degrees out, and I'm going to be out in the park with kettlebell in the shade, but I'm still going to be just sweating profusely, drinking gallons of water. So it's going to be, 2 for 1, getting a detox and a workout. So.
Yeah, I keep thinking it would be so nice to have a sauna, and then I look outside and it's 120. I'm like, what am I thinking? Just go outside and move around a bit, like
I get that
the
yesterday
sun
morning.
built in right here,
Right.
But, I really think the more of those things you start doing before you even start doing a detox, if you're going to do a big, deep detox like this, not only is it an experience to go through, and you have to be really on it with, like I say, I'm taking pills 7 times a day, and they all have to be orchestrated with each other and with my food. And that gets really old really fast. Like, you have, and like, I have to like keep myself awake in time to take my last set of pills and stuff. Like, it's ridiculous. And you don't feel good, right? And so it's probably a lot worse when you don't do any work on the front end. I think that I could have felt a lot worse if I hadn't already been, used to a ketogenic diet. And so I was perfectly happy with that and doing IF every day. I usually do about an 18-hour fasting window. Sometimes I'm hungry in the morning, and so I actually eat something, but very seldom. So it might be 14 one day, it might be 16 one day. It's usually about 18. Sometimes it's 24. It just depends. And so, but I'm used to that. I've been doing that for over 2 years. So, just by doing that stuff and then getting out in the sun for a little bit of time every day, that just the heat, like you were talking about, just getting used to doing those things, which help the process of detox. That makes it so much easier than it would otherwise be if you're coming at it from just standard American diet, staying at home all the time, doing nothing and never getting any sun. So the more you can do, and it just improves your health overall anyway, the more of this you get into, the sooner you do it, the better. And the more you get used to it, the better. And then, like even with the fasting, like at the end of this program, they have another program that you can do that tacks onto it. And it's a 7-week fasting program, and it culminates in a 5-day water fast. And I'm not sure, how I'm going to do through all of that. I've tried a little bit longer fasts. I don't know that I'd call a 5-day fast extended, because some people are fasting for, weeks, months, and those are definitely extended. I don't know. I've tried, like 30, 36 hours before a couple of times, and I did not feel good at all once I hit about 30 hours. But I'm in a different place now. So you never know. Again, you have to just keep experimenting with yourself and see how you feel. If you feel really bad, don't do it. There are other things that I can do besides a water fast. I could do a fat fast. I could do a protein sparing modified fast. There are some things that are more more similar to what I'm already doing. But will, more of a fasting sort of thing. The idea behind the fasting is to get your body doing certain processes that it doesn't do when it's focused on eating. And so like autophagy, eating, useless skin cells, damaged proteins, various things in your body that aren't working well or that they're not needed. You recycle those, you eat those things. And that becomes, fuel, and it becomes, parts of other cells. That happens a little bit during any kind of ketogenic eating or any kind of intermittent fasting, but it really kicks into gear at about the 3-day mark. You start really, like 17 hours is kind of a magical number for that. And then like the 3-day mark, you've got tons of autophagy going on. Same with stem cells. You can get stem cell therapy for huge money. Like it's really expensive. Or you can just not eat and save money on groceries and flood your system in stem cells. And it starts at about day 3, they're thinking. And so if you do like a 5-day water fast, at about day 3, you've got all these stem cells that are all proliferating in your body in all different tissues. Some start earlier than others, different tissues. So for me, my joints are an issue. And so in order to get stem cells that are going to be impacting my joints, that's going to start at about day 3. And so you want to keep it going for a couple of days. So you're just flooded in those stem cells for a couple of days, and then get back to your eating. And so there are different things that happen at different periods, of fasting. And they're there because, our bodies were made to fast, not intentionally, but because we just didn't get food every day. And so at a certain point, your brain's going to turn on, you're going to think really clearly, you're going to have a lot of energy and all of this, contrary to what you might believe, because your body is set up so that if it's hungry, it's going to be able to go catch food, and so there are some amazing things. And a guy named Jason Fung, he's a nephrologist, a kidney doctor. He's like the guru of modern day fasting. And he's got some great books out and interviews on YouTube for free that you can check out. But check out the whole fasting thing, because that really plays into this detoxing a lot. Like we were talking about, Rich, before we, started recording this. It's a huge deal, and we might have to do a little, Q&A or something on fasting at some point, if anybody's interested. But anyway, that's tacked onto this detox program for a reason, because it's a way of getting your body to like really let go of everything possible. Now, you don't want to be doing this all the time, because it's a pain in the ass. It is the biggest pain in the ass you can imagine. It just takes up so much time, and it's expensive. People can pay up to $5,000 for the program that I'm on without the fasting part of it. That's an additional charge. And then if you have to redo any phases, those are additional charges. And if you need to add any other supplements for detox symptoms, those are additional charges. So you can spend a crazy amount of money on detox programs, and you want to be able to like get everything done in one fell swoop and do it right and be prepared. So get into that ketogenic way of eating, do some intermittent fasting, get used to that, start going for walks, getting out in the sun, anything you can that's going to be helpful, so that when you go through this, you get the maximum benefit of what it's doing. And then go to what you're talking about, Rich, which is a normal everyday sort of thing. And then every, month, few months, year, whatever, turn it up into kind of high gear for a little bit with something, but not necessarily this whole big thing that like I'm going through now. Would you agree with that? Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you again. Oh, hold on a second. I'm going to pause it. Okay, we're back. So yeah, no, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right on. And the idea is that, so you're with this major program right now, you're experiencing what I call Jack Sparrow effects. We get kind of the brain fog, we get a little woozy in every way. And that's usually when we're really toxic. But if we go through this and we stay on a regular maintenance of detoxing, then I do believe it's a good idea to do a deeper one once a year, every couple of years. Like I said, I'll do something a little deeper every 6 months, 9 months, something like that. And then periodically, I'm like, yeah, I just want to do like the deepest level. But they're never as bad now. When I was talking earlier about the bell curve, when I've been really sick from detoxing, I haven't had that in years, because you're bringing less in as you make your life more conscious in this way. You're bringing less toxins in. I'm consistently detoxing. So less of those things are sticking in my body that are still coming in, because I live in the world, and it's a toxic world. And so less of those things are sticking. I'm keeping those things flushed out pretty well. And overall, it makes the whole process easier. So you just have to experience those really heavy symptoms over and over and over.
Oh, you froze up, I think. Oh, there you are. Okay. Yeah. So, the more you can do to prepare to do something like this, the better off you're going to be, for sure. And you're actually helping your body do some more detox on its own, just because it's a great detoxing machine on its own. And for millions of years, we didn't need any detoxing programs, because our body handled it just fine. And there are some doctors who still to this day say, hey, you don't need any more. If you're eating a ketogenic diet, you're doing intermittent fasting, and you're getting out there and you have a lifestyle that is conducive to human survival, then you're going to be doing just fine. And I think for some people that's probably true. I think for other people like myself, who worked in a toxic wet lab for 5 years and whatever else, that maybe we've put in just so much that even if we were doing everything right, our bodies would still be overloaded, and we would still want to be getting more out. But it's definitely true that the more you do that's conducive to the way human bodies work, the less you're going to have to do, with, supplements or whatever else. So,
right. Yeah. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, I want to touch base on too, is that one of the benefits is we talked about being careful with this and helping educate people about what they might go through, but also not to be scared of it, right? Find a good program, find a good coach, or just tread lightly into it. Like get into cold water, you just creep your way out and get deeper and deeper. But definitely do something. In public IF, like one of the things I said, I make my list when I'm doing IF, especially at first when I haven't been doing it, but that mental clarity that comes with a fast or even a deep IF window. And I think the way I've heard it phrased that I like the best is that predators are always at their best when they're hungry, right? You think about a lion after it eats like around or when it's still doesn't care, but when it's hungry, like it is sharp. It's like its demeanor is entirely different, and to be able to move through the day in a sharper, more aware state. Hunger is not a bad thing. It's back to, we've been hearing this more and more, but it's also, this knowledge has been around for years, that we've become so scared of being hungry in our society. It's not a terrible thing. You get your body used to it, and you find whichever you are, and just a little bit of hunger. It's like anything else, you can get used to.
Oh, we lost you again.
Uh-oh.
Okay, what was that last part?
We've become so anti being hungry in this country, and in the first world, I don't just pick on America all the time, that we're so afraid of being hungry. I'm hungry, so we eat stuff, and that is not a bad thing in moderation, and it's actually our bodies need it. Our bodies evolved to being hungry very often. Like you said, that's where the 5 or longer fasting periods come in, because our bodies had to go for days at a time. But we get used to it. Hunger is like anything else. You get used to it. Right? The people who are this is terrible, I can't do it. And then, a few months later, they kind of like it. So our mind and our body can get used to anything, including hunger. So not to be afraid of it.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, and you get a totally different feeling once you get those things in line and your body's working more in a normal way that it's supposed to. Then it's you can go for a long time without eating and not be hungry at all. And when you do get hungry, it's just like, okay, well, maybe I'll eat something. Like you're not hangry. Like when you're eating a bunch of carbs and you're eating every 2 hours, and if you don't get that Snickers bar after 2 hours, you're in trouble. But yeah, if you're eating the way your body was meant to eat, then you don't get that, and you can actually. People who are on like a carnivore diet where they don't eat any plants at all, so they don't have any toxins coming in at all, because they need it because they're like autoimmune or something like that. And I'm pretty much in that camp. That it's like, okay, well, I guess I haven't eaten in a while and I am feeling a little bit hungry, so it's been 8 hours or whatever. I'm like, okay, I got a steak in the fridge, so let's 3 minutes one side, 3 minutes the other side, eat it in 5 minutes, done. That's my meal for the day. Like, I mean, that it's not a big deal, when you start getting to a system that works well for your body, and that's making you feel good. And because you're in touch with your body now, you can hear what it's telling you. It makes it really easy, and you come up with your own system that just winds up being really easy, and it keeps you working right. And then if you don't eat for a while, it's not a big deal, because your body's like, oh yeah, no problem, we're not going to starve, we're going to have more food coming down the pike, but just not hungry right now. So things change a lot. Yeah.
And that's what I discovered too, is that when I'm really clicking, when I'm on, eating low carb or really minimizing my carbs, especially processed, and I'm in a good IF window, my biggest problem is eating enough, because I forget to eat. I'll be like, I'm kind of hungry, I guess I should eat something, and nothing sounds good. And that's a good thing. It means my body has everything it needs. It's okay, it needs a little fuel, but also I'm not like, oh my Lord, I need tacos right now.
Right.
But yeah,
you don't have any cravings anymore.
I've got leftover this will do, then you're back to whatever you're doing.
And that's a good way to tell if you're actually hungry, or if it's a craving, or if it's appetite, if it's a psychological thing. If it's genuine body hunger, anything is going to satiate it.
Right.
Anything is gonna quell that hunger. But if you're like, standing with with the refrigerator open going, what do I feel like eating? You're not hungry. You're just not. Like, back away from the refrigerator, because you are not hungry. Wait until you're actually hungry, in which case then you're like, your body's going to tell you, and it's going to, you're going to know. And then it's like, okay. So yeah, I mean, it just gets a lot easier as you keep moving into these good habits that your body wants you to have. It's just easier and easier to, start that detox process on your own, and you're not start it because it's doing it all the time, but start making it better. And allowing your body to do it more often, and to, do its thing when it's supposed to. And then also by doing one of these programs. What's that?
I'm good.
What was that? I missed it.
Oh, no, I was just saying that, yeah, if your body does it all the time, but be more intentional with it, making the process more effective and more efficient is really what our goal here is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, once you go through the big process, once you do your research and you realize, okay, what you want to do, who you want to do it with, and then really, make sure that you do not mess up, do it, like be committed, go through it. So you only have to go through the big bad process once, right? And then just know that you're going to come out the other end feeling so much better, and your body's in so much better shape to take care of itself. And then, just give it a little help, like you say, every so often, maybe once a year, a bit more help, just to make sure, because we have all these toxins in our environment that's totally unnatural. We're going to need some help, and it doesn't hurt anything, so, and, it becomes something that just is part of your life, that you start looking at things differently. Like, I started, I went around and I took I noticed I had a liner of my shower curtain in the spare room. And I'm like, oh, this has to go. That's like one of the most toxic things in your house. I had no idea until I, heard an interview with somebody, and she's a specialist in this stuff. And she's like, if you get one thing out of your house, get rid of those liners and your shower curtains. And so I was like, oh yeah. So I mean, that went in the trash, right? Like all these things I see, like fake flowers around and stuff. I'm like, that's got to go, plastic, and so just, all that stuff that just releases chemicals in your house, you start looking at things differently. And you start looking at your body differently and how it works. And, if I eat this, what's downstream of that? Like what's going to be the impact of that versus if I eat that. I wanted ice cream the other night, and I'm thinking, oh, Cold Stone has a coupon available. And I'm like, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to take like 1 or 2 bites, and it's going to be like, okay, yeah, that's really good, but ooh, it's way too sweet, and
Right.
I can't eat this. I just can't eat this, and I'll throw it away, And so I needed some groceries, and so I got a pint of ketogenic ice cream. The Enlightened brand is the one that I like. I got one of those, 4 net carbs in the entire pint. I can eat that and not feel bad. Like, I can't be eating them every day, but for a special treat, that's going to be awesome.
Right.
So, you start making these better decisions just because, okay, I don't want to get the sugar headache. I don't want to be feeling like crap afterwards. I want my body to be able to, handle any germs that might come in instead of handling all the sugar that I just ate, things like that, and then once you get used to that, and you know how your body works, you can keep it much cleaner, help it keep itself, much cleaner than maybe it could have before. So, start getting into those healthy habits and doing whatever you can. And then, see about doing one of those big detoxes, to really get started on it. And I'm doing videos on my experience with this. Every few weeks, I'm putting up a new one. And so I'll do another one, like at the end of this, this phase, and let everybody know kind of like where I'm at and how it's going and everything. But it seems to be really helping with stuff. I'm not going to know for sure until, I'm actually done with the process, and I'm not there yet. But so far I can definitely tell that, there's stuff going on, and it's consistent with releasing some big bad toxins that I had built up, in my cells, and that needed to go. So, yeah, so I think, like the next one would be kind of cool, is to have another discussion a little later about like what to do as like a daily, once you get yourself in a good place, like after finishing a big detox or something, what can you do to keep your body in, how can you help your body with the detoxing it naturally does?
Right.
And there are a number of different things that I know you can do for that. So you up for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Okay, cool. And we'll get the whole like computer compatibility thing figured out at some point
before next time. This has been vexing us too long. So
did we forget anything? I know we talked about a few things we wanted to get. I think we hit everything, didn't we?
We hit our checklist. We did. And I think the last point I'd want to close with is that, we've had done 3 videos on this so far. They've all been over an hour. And that can sound like a lot to people. But I've been saying all along, don't let the process be intimidating. One step at a time. Take the easiest things, that you can do. Then take the next thing. Because like anything else in life, it's all about mindset and habit. So you build that slowly. And even before you jump into a detox, maybe you're replacing your plastic with glass and things like that. And you're starting a light detox program, but you build into it over time. And within a few months or 3 months or 6 months, you're a much less toxic human being. If you've removed the things coming in, you've started yourself going the right direction, and you just keep building these small habits, and pretty soon, again, it's like he's talking about going through and pulling all the artificial flowers out and things like that. Once your mindset's there, those things are so easy. They really are. So
They are. They're no-brainers, and you just feel so much better too, as you keep doing more and more things down that path.
Positive reinforcement, right? Is you just keep feeling better. So
exactly right.
It's also easy is the more you do, the better you will feel, and there's your positive reinforcement, and then you'll want to do more and keep doing what you're doing. So
yeah, absolutely. And do the same with your diet. Keep getting rid of, get rid of the processed stuff, the sugars, the things that are definitely, everybody would agree is something nobody should be eating. And then keep moving on from there. Almost all of us probably need to greatly reduce the amount of like grains and beans that we're eating. The types of vegetables we're eating, some, higher carb vegetables. A lot of people don't do well with those, or not at least on a normal basis. Maybe you need to save the potatoes for special occasions, maybe you need to, get rid of more and more toxicity that's coming into your body. And so you need to get rid of more and more plants in your diet, because that's their defense. They don't want to be eaten either. But unlike a water buffalo, they can't kick you in the head or run from you. So their defense is chemical, and there are thousands of chemicals in plants. And, most plants we can't eat because they're too toxic, but the ones we can, we call fruits and vegetables. And they also have toxins in them. And so, we need to be careful. I regularly have clients that have to get off of certain kinds of vegetables because they have sensitivities to certain toxins. And then, there's that group, like I said, autoimmune group, and some others that just have to get off of all plants altogether to really feel their best. And then, but it's a miraculous thing. Once you dial down the amount of toxins that you're putting into your body from the air, from what you're drinking, from what you're eating, from what's in your house, from whatever, once you keep dialing that down, you get to a point where you just really feel great. And that's where you want to be. That's your sweet spot, right? And it's going to be different for each one of us. So we have to consider ourselves single subject experiments, just like, Rich was saying, and just find what works best for us. Just keep eliminating until we get to a point where just, everything is just really good. And then save everything else for special occasion kind of stuff. Don't say you can never, eat ice cream again. Do it, but do it in a way that feels good. And I know, right? Yeah. Thank goodness. So anyway, thanks for joining us. And I hope this was some good information for you guys. And Rich, is always just awesome. Thanks so much for, chatting with me about this stuff. It's as informative for me as it is for everybody else. And it's just fun to talk to.
Yeah. You can reach out to me if anybody has any questions, and you can find me through Amy's information, and I'm happy to help out and get people going in the right direction, because it is good to have a resource that has some experience in this stuff. But just enjoy the process and just look forward to feeling better. That's really the key. That's why we do it. So we're healthier and we feel better. And I can tell you, when I'm eating more standard American diet and not watching my toxins coming in and such, versus when I'm clean, I'm a different person. It is a night and day difference. And that's how much better I feel. That's really my driver.
Yeah. And that's what it should be. If you're doing the right things, with the possible exception of, detoxing from carbohydrates, which some people have to go through, or detoxing in a program where, you're letting stuff go and you're not feeling good for a little while, all that's detox stuff. And so, if you just make your way through it, then you feel so much better on the other side. So, it is all about just feeling better. And so as you go through the process and you do more and more, you just feel better and better. So, just keep it simple and just start down that road and just keep doing more and more, and if you want to do a deep dive, like what I'm doing right now, I'm going to have information for you on the show notes, and where you can find Rich and get some help to make sure you're doing it right. So, anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. And thank you, Rich. And we'll be back with another one on one thing or another, probably like every day kind of, detox, getting into a routine, would be pretty cool. So we'll get back with you guys on that later. So have a good one, and see you, Rich.